Welcome to the All City Chess Club. I am your host, James Cordy. Today we have with us someone special. It is Darrel Greene, also known as Jesty Beatz. Darrel is a music producer born in the Cleveland area who spent a good part of the last decade and a half in Los Angeles working on various projects with various artists. Darrel is a 3-time MTV VMA nominated composer and mixer. And as well, in 2023, he was chosen as the best producer by Cleveland Magazine. He is the founder of Declared Major, an independent record label featuring artists like Evan McIntosh, Clement, sorry, I feel like I messed that up, and Menno Beck. But he has also worked in a sound design and mixing capacity with the likes of Jennifer freaking Lopez, Kylie Jenner, Big Sean, Brandy, and the National Football League, to name a few. Hot damn, Jesty, you've been busy, man.
I've been nonstop with it. But you got Clement right. Clement is her name. You did it. It.
So, Jesty, I got so many things I want to talk to you about, man. For the listeners that obviously wouldn't know this, we met in college.
Definitely.
I mean, you were probably an 18 or 19-year-old young man, as was I. I want to say you were a year behind me. Did you graduate high school in 2001?
2002.
Okay, so maybe a couple years behind
Yeah.
me. So maybe I was a sophomore, junior when we met.
For sure.
So many things I want to ask, but I can't help myself but to start with this one.
Yeah.
The name of your new independent record label, I guess it's not that new anymore, Declared Major.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Thanks.
I love it. I love the double meaning. It gives me a little bit of Kanye vibes with like the higher education, university. So I have to ask, how long did you sit on that name before using it? And who designed the logo?
Okay, so some random dude on Fiverr designed that logo. It was pretty funny. It was when Fiverr first came out. Somebody was like, hey, you should try this. They were passing out these cards and all this stuff, and they were like, you should try it. And I was like, hey, let me see if I can get this logo done. And someone did it, and I just put it up. But turned
out great, man. I love it.
Thanks so much. But I was holding on to that name for a while. Like I had the idea in college. I think it came like after I heard We Major by Kanye. Like I was like, We Major. And then I was like, Declared Major. Oh, maybe I could use that, but I never really knew how LLCs worked or how business worked. And I already had kind of a brand going already, but I had it in the back of my mind. But I started that officially in 2017. So.
All right, man. So take it back for us. And this is cool because this is stuff that I don't know about you either.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about your childhood, your family growing up, and kind of if and how that influenced you taking this creative path towards life.
Yeah, so I came from a really creative and supportive family, definitely resourceful people. There's definitely was like a culture of, if you want this, you can make it happen type of thing in my family. And I think a lot of family members definitely had some sort of like side hustle where they worked for themselves in some capacity, whether it was an aunt doing nails and going to like nail school, or people doing hair, or like illustrators, singers, like all of that through the gamut in my family. So it wasn't odd for me to be creative at all. It was actually encouraged, and it was just a matter of making it make sense. Like, how can you support yourself with this? And,
Sure.
Just being cool with that. So yeah,
I love it, man.
It was awesome. It was awesome growing up that way.
Dude, I got so many questions, so don't feel badly if some of them are rapid fire answers. Like I got a lot I want to get to with you. And, we'll get after it. So again, we stated for the record already, you and I both went to Ohio University down in beautiful Athens, Ohio. We were both patrons and participants in the hip hop scene there, which is how we met. But I remember, again, I stayed an extra year, and I think that's when you really started to like branch out. You were playing at other campuses, traveling around the state, and then you started really, playing shows all over kind of the country. And my understanding is, even further than that. But even in those early days on campus, when you were getting your feet wet, what did you learn about performing and commanding a stage, and just what was important about that?
Wow. Okay, so it's kind of funny because my first show ever was with you. You were going on after me. This was at the Union, and it's upstairs. Yep. Now, I think we were opening for somebody out of town, but I don't remember who. I don't know. I know that Stu was there, or DJ Explosive was there, and he was the actual guy who like let me perform, you know what I mean? But I remember that, and it's kind of crazy. The first show was terrible. It was horrible. I was terrible. There weren't a lot of people there. I
Relatable.
I just remember my voice is really deep, and I didn't know how to hold the microphone. So like the sound guy turned up my mic, and which made it so I couldn't move at all. Every time I would move, I would get like really bad feedback. And my bass was so loud in my mix that it made my CD player skip, and like I was lost. It was terrible, right? So, and I just remember like getting off the stage, like that was horrible. I do not want. And I had invited people from my dorm out. It was like a big deal to me. And it was just one of those things. But then I saw you go on stage after me. Like there was someone else, and then it was you. And then you went on stage. You were like real confident, like standing up and stuff. And you're just like, now when I say hip or something, you said something. You did call and response, like spurt. And I was like, I'm in the front row. I'm just like, yo, like I need to do that. Like I got to do that. Like that's what I want to do. So like I took call and response and like implemented it into my show. And then like the next 20 shows were me trying to like A/B test, trying to figure out what the best like call and response was for me. And by like show 20, I landed on Turn It Up Louder. Like when I say turn it up, you say louder. And that was the one that got the most response. So I'd say that like one of the biggest things that I learned at OU, where, you know, you could mess up without really people seeing, you know what I mean? And kind of grow and incubate. It was more so like see things that are working for other people, and then from there try to figure out a way to kind of like retrofit it to what you got going on, and then like just learn from other people and just implement what you like, you know. And that was the starting point to that kind of mindset, and it developed into a career, you know what I mean? Just finding things I like and doing my spin on it. So yeah.
Heck yeah. Man, that's amazing. You still remember that with everything you've done between now and then.
Heck
of course,
yeah.
I remember some of those details too. But, you know, what you said there is interesting, man. It's almost like an experiment in human psychology. Because I don't think probably a lot of people who have ever thought about, because a lot of people have never been on a stage, what could I ask people to say? Because ultimately you're asking them to buy into what you're doing. But not just that. What is not going to make them uncomfortable? What's not weird to say? You know, I say hip, you say hop. It's like some old school kind of, nowadays people would be like, no, man, like I'm not completing that.
Right.
But turn it up louder. Like you landed on something that's one word. And, you know, I don't know. It is like an easy rallying cry. I love it. That's cool as hell, man. All right. Let me see here. Here's my next question. So, as I mentioned a minute ago, you played a ton of shows in college. You know, leaving college, I think you kind of continued down that path. Do you encourage, and I'm kind of leading into what we're going to talk about in a little bit here, for the listeners, Jesty now runs an independent record label that has artists that he produces for and helps put their music out. Do you encourage your artist to go through that same process? Because I know, you know, back in our day, that was the main way. You know, social media had started, you know, Facebook, YouTube were in their infancy, if they were even available. That was the way that people began to know who you were, is you had to go and play regionally and expand from there. There's obviously things to learn from that process, but do you encourage your artists that you work with today to do that? Or has social media kind of taken the place of that process?
I think that that's an interesting question. I think that there are two types of shows, and I like to call them like push and pull. And pushing basically means they don't know you, they have no clue who you are, and you're pushing your music on an audience that is not prepared for experiencing you. Pull is when people are coming to see you, and you can kind of, you know, relax a little bit. Like they're gonna know the words. There's demand.
What you're doing.
So I think that it's important for young, inexperienced artists to do a lot of push shows, because there are two different skill sets involved. And I think that you build confidence by like eventually winning people over and winning the crowd over. Like that mindset and knowing how to adapt and getting through the resiliency to get through that type of show where it's brutal. No one is responding to you. No one cares. Everyone wants to see the headliner. Like, I think it's important to kind of get through that. It's not even necessarily a fan conversion thing. It's like preparing you for the worst, you know, and I think it's important for young artists to kind of experience that. I have seen artists that have gotten pull shows because of social media a little bit too early, and I've seen them kind of get overconfident or get like just not really have be equipped for what they're supposed to be.
They haven't earned the stripes of live performance yet, even though people want to see them perform.
Definitely. So, I've seen them derail themselves because they're overconfident and think that like every show is supposed to be like that. And when it doesn't click, they kind of break, So, yeah. Sure. I think that push shows are important, and I think that the regional fan base is due for a comeback. Like, I think that social has kind of done the nurturing and like done the kind of incubating for a lot of artists, but I think that if you can combine both of those, you're going to win in a bigger and better way in the very near future. I honestly believe that.
Thank you. Now, I'll liken it a little bit to marketing, which is digital marketing is a clear, excellent way to reach tons of people, but everyone knows that today, and so it's super saturated. And I don't mean to go down this very boring path, but I'm working on kind of my company's marketing offerings for the vendor lines that we sell right now. And I'm introducing things like direct mail and billboards even. And my boss is like, dude, what is this? I'm like, well, these lanes are like, there's no traffic here anymore.
Exactly.
Everyone is on LinkedIn and Facebook and whatever. And so if we come here, so not that it's quite the same thing, but it's like if everyone is trying to blow up off of TikTok and YouTube and what have you, not to say you should ignore it, but if you can go and build a regional fan base, and I also kind of feel like some of the best artists, if I think of like Pharrell, like Virginia Beach had his back, like they wanted to own him, and I think, or whatever, claim him rather. I think when you can get your region to do that, again, I know you're either from or spent a lot of time in the Cleveland area, there were artists like that, 10 or 12 years ago, like Chip the Ripper, and people who Cleveland had their back. And then that kind of propelled them to a larger stage. So anyhow, definitely. I appreciate you weighing in on that. So when was it? Lay out the timeline. You left Ohio University at what year? And then when did you move to LA exactly?
So this is kind of interesting. So my senior year at OU, I recognized that I had a big following, and it registered to me that was like kind of a thing of value. And I really wanted to like see how I could leverage that in some way. I don't know why I was thinking this profoundly at that age, but like it was something that I wanted to do. And so in essence, let me put it to you like this. I wanted to go on spring break. I wanted a free spring break tour, and I wanted to have the real MTV spring break experience, like, because I never had anything like that. I never had enough money to do that. So I had a friend named Jackie Burma. She was a marketing person at OU, and basically I told her, like, hey, I want a free spring break. Call spring break companies and see if you can like work out a deal where we have their signage up or have something going on, and get me a spring break. So basically a few days later, she called me back. She's like, hey, I've got a bite on this. I think that you should really look into this. So in essence, that bite was they wanted to do a 60-city college tour my senior year at OU. And it was all on the West Coast, and then they wanted me to spend the month opening up all the shows. So they were going to have shows every week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, featuring like the biggest names that you could ever like imagine at the time. Like Mike Jones was like #1 in the country. I got to like all that stuff, like all these huge names, right? And then like I got to open up for all those shows, but they wanted somebody to get in front to like kind of pass out flyers and let people know and kind of like represent the spring break company on a tour. So what happened was my senior year, I got independent study credits. Shout out to Dr. Butler and Terry Eiler. They both like, Terry Eiler. Yeah, they hooked me up. They let me write a paper about what I learned throughout that whole process, but they let me go. That initial college tour got like kind of derailed pretty early, but I ended up going on that tour in Baja California in Mexico, where like basically I'm Wayne Newton of spring break. I have a residency at 3 different clubs, but I'm opening for like all these huge people. It was like E40, D4L, Mac 10, Sugar Free, Fat Joe, Pitbull, like all these huge people are coming. The crowds are like between 5,000 and 7,000 people, like drunk, crazy, amazing, West Coast
Ring
people.
breakers.
It was the best experience that I could ever like imagine. So with that was my senior year. So I'm still in school where I got that LA, California taste, and then went back to school right after that, finished the semester, and then ultimately finished and graduated. In 2006, I graduated, and then the guy who was the promoter for those concerts, he ended up becoming my manager, and he was based in San Diego. So in 2006, I moved to San Diego to be an artist with a manager, and he was promoting shows and booking shows, and he would book big name acts, and I would get to open for all of those people. So the timeline goes 2005, I'm a spring break guy. 2006, I graduate college. Then I moved to San Diego. Doing all that stuff. Things kind of went super left. He kind of bit off more than he could chew on the promoter side. My manager bit off more than he could chew on the promoter side. And ended up in kind of a Fire Fest type situation where you owed a lot of money for a wild concert series, and I was looking real Ja Rule-ish, if that makes sense. Just guy next to the guy doing so in essence, I don't think that he started with fraud intent, but the idea was that things just kept getting sidetracked and derailed that were kind of out of his control. And he ended up owing some people, and I had to get out of there. So I moved back to Ohio and just hit it hard. Started performing, doing shows, going to different college campuses and going back to what I knew. I tried the formal manager, you book me type thing, and I realized that I need to have control over this because I don't want other people's issues interfering in my career, if that makes sense. So I just hit it super hard. And then after hitting it dumb hard, I finished an album in 2008. I got Busy Bone as a feature on there, and that really started to get some stuff moving. And I met a guy who was a producer and a songwriter and a singer. He went to OU. His name was Aaron Michael Cox. I met him, and I was a graduated dude, but he was still in the dorms, and he was incredible dude, singers, incredible spirit, just great guy. He was my brother. So we started creating. We did some songs, and got the ear of a guy named James who worked at one point for BET and also worked for Atlantic Records. So, all of that to say, in around 2009, I got a record deal offer through Warner, and I was I gotta go to LA to get this. So, that happened.
Was that a requirement? I mean, they're based out there, right? They wanted you out in LA?
I think it was a requirement. I do know that during my initial meetings with the labels and stuff, they were what do you have going on? And I'm showing them all of the tens of thousands of people in crowds. And they're yeah, that's great, but that's in Ohio. It was because the internet and social wasn't as big at the time. I feel people weren't as globally minded. They didn't value a crazy regional base at the time in 2009. So in essence,
dude, how many followers do you think you would have built from that 2006 to 2008? Because I'm trying to remember, Facebook came out in 2004 or 5 that I knew about it. I feel and I don't remember when YouTube, if that was before or after, but does it feel like your fan base or your followership could be 4 or 5 times bigger had you been, 8 years later?
It could be it would be way crazy. I was just ahead of my time, and that's kind of the overall theme of all of these things. But at the end of the day, I know that now I'm taking it seriously. I don't know, I've had so much success outside of social media, and I felt for a long time that I wanted to be authentic, and I didn't understand that. I felt like social media wasn't the place for authenticity the way it is now. In 2023, everyone wants authenticity in their social media influencer, right? And I wanted to live an authentic life, and I was sick of like only showing wins and all that stuff, and I didn't feel like that was as accepted back then. You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So with that, I kind of shied away from it because I wanted to find my truth. You know, now I'm getting back into it and like really enjoying it. But I think that back then, if back then were now, I don't know, I definitely have a million people following me by now. I believe that. So
no, I do too. I mean, knowing what you were doing back then and the crowds you were in front of, you're a smart dude. You would have had your handle on a sign or a QR code, and you would have had hundreds of people at every show following you, and then their friends. Yeah, the whole network effect.
Back then, I owned buymycd.net. I owned buymycd.net, and I had shirts that just said buymycd.net, and I would walk around with CDs. People were like, they're like, yo, where can I buy your CD? I'm like, go to buymycd.net, you know, and that's how a lot of the stuff ended up spreading like early on.
Did you sell that domain?
I ended up selling that domain. Heck yeah.
For how much, if you don't mind my asking? Because that is incredible that you owned that.
It was, I think it wasn't crazy. It was a few $1,000s. It was in between $3,000 and $5,000 at the time, which was like,
not bad, man.
Like, man, it cost 99 cents back then to get this site. So I was like, yo, oh yeah, heck yeah, let's go. And then ended up
ROI is crazy.
It ended up in the hands of Derek Slivers, the guy who owned CD Baby. He ended up having it. So
oh wow,
pretty crazy.
Real crazy. Holy shit, Darrel. I do remember those T-shirts. I don't remember if it was just me seeing photos or if that was like, you know, when I was still around you or whatever. But
no, you were around.
That's amazing, man. All right, so you signed with Warner, you get a deal with Warner, and they basically paint the picture that, hey, it would be great to have you out in LA. Obviously, there's a ton of opportunity just in the entertainment business in general. So you move out and you get an apartment, you get roommates. What was your living situation?
Okay, so let's clarify. I had a deal offer on the table, but when I flew there, I ended up getting word that everyone in charge of my project was getting laid off. So I didn't have a deal. So it's literally the day that I land. Like I get off the plane, I'm like, hey, like let's link up. Like like no answer. And then like 2 or 3 days later, I remember I was in San Diego because the guy who was going to sign me lived in San Diego, and he called me back through my manager, like a different dude. Manager, the guy who was making the plug, he called me through the plug, and the plug conveyed the message that like everything was kind of like at a standstill, and I just kind of had to wait and be patient, and like I was waiting and being patient, but nobody like picked up the project. So I had made a big to-do about moving. Everyone, my gigantic fan base back home knows that I'm here, and I'm like at this crossroads of like, do I stay and try to figure this out and try to get another situation and get this thing going, or do I go back hat in hand and try to like, you know, and
did you have a project like ready to go, like a record, or was the idea that you would come out there and work with them on a new one?
We were gonna work on a new one, but we had 3 singles that they liked. Me and Aaron had 3 singles that they liked.
Oh, this was you and Aaron together.
Yeah, well, Aaron was just featuring on them, you know, and he had like I think co-produced those songs as well, and probably wrote something on them. So, so it was, we had worked on those songs together, and they were in love with them. So the deal didn't work out, and I moved to LA. I like was staying with friends, like my friend Chloe. I stayed on her couch for a while. I stayed on my boy Jacob's from high school couch for a while, and just trying to like regroup and figure it out. And then eventually I like had my homies Bank and MJK, Mike Kajansky. They all moved out with me to Granada Hills in the Valley. So I was a Valley boy pretty much the duration of my tenure in California.
Were these guys from Cleveland
They're
area,
from Cleveland.
Athens?
They're
or?
from Cleveland.
Okay.
From Cleveland. So yeah, like my friends moved out. We had a house we had a room in the house actually. A family of some Cleveland friends. My friend Bruce lived out in California. He's from Cleveland. It was a Cleveland house. There was a lot of Clevelanders living in this house in Granada Hills. And we just had a room in that house. And I feel like the rent was probably around $3,000. But like between all of us in the house, like it was a nice sized house. But like between all of us in the house, like I feel like we ended up paying maybe $300 or $400 each type thing. Okay. You know, so it wasn't
super reasonable.
It was reasonable. Now there might have been like extra just for the room. It was that, but then like extra randomness. But
internet,
yeah. But it was definitely a transitional place. Just a place to kind of like regroup and be around in a family setting. Like actually be able to stand up because the ceiling isn't low. Like it was cool.
Some room to operate.
So I was there, and I would fly to Ohio or random college campuses that would book me. I was still getting booked like crazy, so I would every month or so, like for a week, be somewhere, do a bunch of shows, get rent money, and like money to live, and then just like pay rent, live life.
So music was still your job at this
still
point.
My
you were
job.
Grinding as an artist, as a vocalist, rapper, doing shows. That's how you were making your rent.
That's how.
And I know I'm hitting you with timeline stuff. That Darrel, if you were asking me this stuff, I'd be like, I have no idea what years those were. I'm terrible with timelines. But I appreciate you. About how long, and you can correct me if I'm putting this the wrong way, but about how long did that last to the point where you started to transition from and I realized you were still an artist and you're still producing music, obviously producing music, but making music of your own. But when you said, you know what, I think production is maybe going to take a front seat and putting out, albums as Jesty Beatz might take a back seat. Was it a number of years out in Cali before you kind of started, again, maybe I'm saying this incorrectly, but working in a studio?
Yeah. So I think that once I got to California, I was still doing the artist thing and still very much wanting to be an artist. And that was from around 2009 till about 2011. I was working really hard on my like artist stuff and just kind of growing and building, still maintaining my friendship with Aaron Michael Cox, who still was a student at OU at the time because he was like way younger. And Aaron would fly out sometimes to do work. He ended up getting signed to Universal Music Publishing as like a songwriter producer, and so he got a publishing deal. So
while he was still in school or after he graduated?
I want to say probably right before he graduated, he had that situation.
That's incredible.
So he's doing it was during that time for sure. So he ended up like being able to like kind of go back and forth because he had like budget to kind of do that. And we started writing songs together for other people. Like he was like, hey, like you write really well, you write really fast, like let's see if you can put like lyrics to these beats I'm making and then I can sing, and it was just one of those things. So I was able to use my skill set in a way that would like benefit others. I never was, even though I'm performing for you, I never felt like I was a true service provider, if that makes sense. So this opened up my mindset of thinking to like, oh, I have a service that people would pay for in a non-performative capacity, So yeah, I feel like in 2011 is when that kind of like seed was planted and the opportunities were planted. Aaron was working with some bigger named artists at the time, and like seeing that I had the opportunity to write something that could potentially make an album was something that I really wanted to be a part of. So 2011, and when 2012 hit, Aaron, I believe, graduated from OU, moved to LA, and was like, hey, move from that house and come stay with me in Sherman Oaks and let's write songs. And we had like a crazy like military like program kind of running. We'd wake up in the morning, like it was crazy. We would wake up in the morning, eat, work out, eat, and then we had 2 hours to write a song. He would go to the studio, and I'll get into all the specific details. He would go to the studio, and I would stay at the house. We would write individually, and then from there, we'd come together, figure out which person had the better idea, and then we'd work on that song, and then our day would start. A client would come into the studio, and then we would work on their stuff. You know, so it was a very boot camp style, like, let's get ready, like, force creativity, don't wait for inspiration type thing. So.
Man, I think that's probably really, really helpful and useful to hear for people. Let me clarify one detail. So you were living together in Sherman Oaks area, you said?
Yeah.
Was the studio in the house where you were bringing clients in to work on their stuff, or were you working at home and then going to the studio? You were living in the house and then working always at the studio?
Okay, so Aaron did his publishing deal through the interns, right? The Interns was a production duo from Chicago, incredible guys, incredible producers. And they had a recording studio with a guy named Edub, who is incredible. Producer, writer, radio personality, DJ, like all kinds of like everything DIY, like making music type thing. He's that. So they had a studio together in Sherman Oaks. Like it was a crazy kind of compound with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rooms. And so we'd kind of be in the back for a while, and the interns would be in the B studio, their like room with a huge sub and all kinds of cool ambiance. And, you know, and so, yeah, there was an actual studio that we worked out of. Yeah, if that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. Okay, so you guys were doing both. The kind of picture you painted was you'd wake up, you had a very regimented schedule. Let's eat, let's work out, let's work on music. You go right, I'll go right, we'll come back, and then we'll go to work for others.
Right.
So you were both working as artists and producing your own, you know, creative work, and then you were also working as engineers and producers on behalf of others. So at this point, that's how you're paying bills and sustaining, you know, living out in LA, right? Sherman Oaks, I imagine it's in the LA area.
Yeah. Sherman Oaks is in the valley. Yeah. Pretty much, I would go time to time to do shows and get cash. Also, like, there was never really, outside of a 4-month period. So let's take it back. Back in 2010, I don't know, I got a real job working at a gym in 2010, and it lasted for 4 months. I did not like it. It was hard. It was hard. It was hard work, you know, like putting weights back, picking up barbells that I should not be picking up. It was crazy times. Right. It did not work. I did that just to kind of have extra cash and not put my friends that lived with me, who also were like my friend Mike, who lived with me at the time. He was my hype man on the road at times, and Bank, he would be the money guy. Like, that's why we call him Bank. Like, I didn't like asking the people for money, the promoters. I always like to be the smiley, happy guy, and like Bank would look scary, and they would pay him the money, right? That's the job. So what happened was, when I was getting these shows at OU or other campuses, they didn't have the flight budget to fly my homies out, and I started to feel bad that because like we were a team and a unit, and everything wasn't being covered by my fee, like their life and their travel. Sure. And all that stuff wasn't being covered. So I ended up getting a job to make things a little easier dynamically between my friends who, they were out in California even though it was fun and great, they were there for me, and they couldn't.
They were playing a role in what you were doing,
but they couldn't necessarily participate all the time. And I just felt like, okay, maybe if I got extra cash or if I got a job and they saw and didn't, I could remove some of the like tension of them feeling like they couldn't participate in something that was going on, you know. So
yeah, it's like an acknowledgement that, hey man, if there was enough money to go around, there would be enough. But
right.
It's not. Look, I'm working a job too to try to make this thing go smooth.
That's really the reason. And from there, I did the job. I did not like it. This is crazy. This is going to be all over the place. But so I can't not tell you this story. I don't know how this is going to.
Please do.
Chronologically, it's going to work. But okay, 2010. Ish, I'm working at the gym for those few months. I sit down and I'm looking at Netflix on my day off, and I see a documentary called Exit Through the Gift Shop, the Banksy documentary with Mr. Brainwash. I was like, Mr. Brainwash is a genius. like I thought that this person was incredible, right? And because I just saw how he built something. Even though he wasn't necessarily like the technical like doer of the art, I just saw like what he did, and I respected it. A lot of people didn't like it, but I respected it.
Recap that real quick, because I watched that documentary, but it was years ago. What exactly was the situation? What was Mr. Brainwash's role in it?
Right. So
was it like a gallery he curated or something?
Yeah.
Sorry, you go ahead and explain.
So Mr. Brainwash was doing a documentary for all of these different street artists, like graffiti, like, you know, Shepard Fairey, all these like crazy wild guys. And he was like, I'm filming a documentary. So they let him come and film. And he just documented.
With them to paint and stuff,
right? And he would document everything. And then everyone was like, wait, when is this documentary coming out? You've been literally filming everything for years. And it turns out that he just chronically loved to document, but didn't necessarily like have an end result in mind. And Banksy decided to do a documentary on him to kind of show how this weird situation kind of unfolded. And he ended up deciding that he wanted to become a street artist, like graphic art, like graffiti art. Like basically he wanted to do street art. Mr. Brainwash decided he wanted to do that. Okay. So from there, he curated a gallery. I think it was called Life is Beautiful. And with that, he had other artists. He would commission actual artists to do work. He would have ideas. He'd be like, I want a life-size Super Mario with Marilyn Monroe hair, spray painted. Like, he would just say something random and people would do the actual art and he would pay them, but he was the artist in the public eye. And he curated this show and did this whole, like, Fake 52 where people, you know, he wasn't doing the actual physical art. He was more producing in a lot of ways, you know? So I was like, this dude is freaking cool. I was obsessed with that story, and I was like, that's crazy. I was on Craigslist looking for jobs, and then I get a phone call because I didn't like working at the gym. So I was on Craigslist looking for jobs and all this stuff. And at that time, like, I was selling a lot of beats to different artists through Craigslist. You could find people who were looking for beats, and I was selling a lot. So I'm on Craigslist. I get a phone call from Jackie again, the woman who got me the spring break situation. She's like, hey, I see a job listing for a beat composer. Like, you should go for it. And I'm like, all right, let's figure it out. And I go to the LACMA, LA Museum of Contemporary Modern, I don't know, LACMA in LA. It's a museum for art, right? So I go there for the interview, and I am underdressed. I just came from the gym, so I'm in like gym clothes, and everyone's in like suits and ties. And I'm just like, yo, what's up? You need a beat maker? And I ended up getting the job on the spot. And I recognized the guy who was doing the hiring, and it was Mr. Brainwash. And I was like, yo, crazy. And he had an artist that he was looking to develop, and he wanted me to go into like work with her. And I was like, yo, let's do it. So a week goes by, and he has this like warehouse. And I'm like, and I'm like show up to this warehouse. And I'm like, oh man, I'm on Craigslist warehouse. Like, what's happening?
I might not come out of this one.
Like, what's happening? But I show up, and you know, the lady takes me to Guitar Center, lets me pick out all the equipment that I want, orders a Mac Pro that I had with specs I want. Like, man, it was the greatest day of my life.
That sounds like a dream.
So I'm sitting here, and we are making beats all day, and I get to make beats by the hour. You know what I mean? I get paid by the hour to make beats for this person, and that was the first. Like, I don't count that as a job. Like, not my only non-music related job was at the gym, but the gym led to me working in the studio making beats for an hour.
What did this interview look like, Darrel? When you showed up, were they like, play some music, talk to us about your? I mean, obviously they wanted to hear what you could do, right? I would imagine.
Right. So the interview was crazy because everyone had a typed name plate. Like, it was like your name, and they would take a headshot of you, and you had like, and so it would be like person with a suit type name, person with a suit type name. But I found out that at the last minute, and they're like, hey, you can't come later, you have to come now, we have an opening now. So I'm in gym clothes, and I have a handwritten my name in my picture, and it's like I'm all out of place, it's sketchy, but like I had a website with all my songs on it, and it had like pictures of me in front with a lot of people in the background.
There was some proof.
Right.
Some proof online.
So basically they sat down with headphones and just listened to whatever song. And they're like, what song am I listening to? Like, and I'm like, I don't know. They're like, you don't know what songs are on your website? I'm like, no, I make a ton of songs.
I can't hear what you're listening to.
Right. I can't hear it. And I make a ton of music. So like, you know, whatever it is, it's cool. And they went through it, and they heard that it was all of a certain quality, and they enjoyed it. So they were like, this was going to be a long, drawn out thing. We've got like cameras here. People are taking pictures. We were going to do a whole casting call, but we want to offer you the job like right now. And so I'm like, let's go. So the guy in the shorts and t-shirt.
Maybe that's why you stood up.
Right, definitely. I'm like, I don't care. So yeah, that job was I'm just making beat. It was like beat boot camp again, like just every day.
Kind of sounds amazing.
To be paid. And they were like, hey, did you make any beats at home? I'm like, yeah, I made beats at home too. They're like, how many hours did that take? And then they would like pay me for those beats too. Like, just
what were they paying you per hour? Do you remember?
So you got to remember, this was 2010 or 11, right? One of those years. It was in that range. So
12, 13
just
years ago.
12, 13 years ago, I feel like I was making $18 or $20 an hour, just making beats, when like minimum wage at the time out there was probably like $8 or $9, you know. So I was,
and you got to buy all your own gear. I mean,
I didn't. They bought the gear. I didn't buy anything.
Right.
Yeah. So it was like just sit in this room and make beats all day. Like I feel like that helped me in more ways than I could even imagine. It gave me confidence, like getting that job like that, but also like it gave me access to equipment that I ordinarily wouldn't have been able to afford, and gave me a familiarity with how things work and how to set it up myself. Because I was placed in a position where I was the only person that knew anything about audio. So it kind of tested me and showed me how to take a non-optimal setting and turn it into a place that can produce quality music. So yeah.
Wow, dude. One last clarification on that, and then I want to connect it back in the chronology. I'm really glad you went down this road, though, because that's such a cool story.
I forgot about that.
So you went to the art museum for the interview? You had like an office in the art museum?
It was, so in the art museum, there's like this outside area where they have a bar, and there are these tables and these seats, and you see this guy, this French dude with aviator shades and a fedora with paint under his nails all over, and just sitting here, and he looks important because all these people are lined up around him to like see him. And the artist named CJ, she was sitting right to his right. And yeah, it was an outside open air. Somehow, some way he had rented the outside like
Okay. I was going to say it's like interviewing someone at a Starbucks or something.
Yeah,
but they probably rented it. It's not their area.
Yeah,
It's like, hey, meet us at this place. They rented the space. Okay. What a cool setting and what a cool story.
It was definitely
all right. So this was, you'd moved to LA, you were doing your work as an artist, you get this gig, and then later is when Aaron moved out and you ended up working in the same studio as the interns.
Yes.
Okay, so this was like the first step, and then you move into this, not move into, but you're working out of the space with 5 different studio rooms that has a pretty high level equipment, right? You're dealing with like professional gear now.
Yeah.
Cool. And then, so that was... 2000.
That was 2011 to the beginning of 2012. That's where we are in the story.
Okay, and then we'll fill in the gaps. But you decided to come back to Ohio about what year?
2017.
Okay, so we got a handful of years in there. I was digging on you, of course, just to ask good questions and catch up, because as I said in the open, you've been up to a lot, which is really cool to learn.
Yeah.
Not surprising, but cool to learn. I was at justjesty.com.
Mm-hmm.
This is when I see that you've done work for the NFL, you've done sound design and mixing for J-Lo and Brandy and all kinds of awesome big artists that we've all known since we were kids. Was some of that work done in that period between 2012, 13, and when you decided to move back to Ohio, or is that more recent stuff? Is that work you got when you were out in LA still?
NFL was last year here.
Okay.
A lot of that stuff was toward that period of my life started right before my decision to move. And it played a big part in my decision to move because that work could be done remotely. And I understood that I was in enough demand. I had built enough of a brand and a name for myself that I knew that I would be able to do it from anywhere. So that was a big reason, for moving back, was during that time.
I see.
Frame.
You didn't need proximity to certain people and certain artists. You could do sound design work from anywhere.
Yes.
Awesome. Cool. Okay. Well, if it's cool with you, and I know we're jumping over a little bit of time now, but I really just kind of wanted to paint the picture of young adult Jesty to kind of, being an artist and growing that fan base, deciding to make the leap to go out to LA and some of the early challenges and learnings and cool moments out there. But then you decide to come back east, to come back to where where you grew up.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of just alluded to it. Was there anything else that went into the decision other than, hey man, like you said, I built a brand, I have some flexibility here, cost of living is lower? What went into the decision to come back out east?
Yeah, so first of all, cost of living was insane. By the end of it, the rent for the 2-bedroom apartment that I had was over $2,000, and it was just it was a tough time. It's just mentally tough. So cost of living, and I was living in a building in the middle of the valley, and I was starting to make money. I started to get bigger gigs. The Kylie Jenner gig had come through.
Right.
A lot of those jobs that got me kind of popular and started building my name in the composer, scoring, sound design, music finisher space were starting to come in, and I started to make money. And I realized really soon that the tax man in California, when you actually start making money, is crazy. And
it's a little different than out east.
That coupled with the cost of living, I didn't like it. And also family, my girlfriend, now wife, did not want to live in California. She lived here. Her family's here. She wanted to be here. So that was a big thing. And also, that's enough. That's enough reasons.
That all makes perfect sense to me.
Money and family.
Hey, you reminded me. So the Kylie Jenner piece that you were involved with, I was on your site today, and I went deep. I was working this morning listening to Evan McIntosh songs on Spotify.
Oh, yeah,
what a talented artist they are. I went deep. I went 12 tracks deep, but I was clicking and just watching. I was watching a little bit of the videos of the work you've played with, but I was listening more. So
sweet.
And that Kylie piece was something else, creatively pretty badass.
Right.
And the question that I thought of in that moment, I'm like, God, I can't keep adding to these questions that I have for Darrel, but Without making this too long and drawn out. Last week, I came across a YouTube video of a guy who does sound design for Logan Paul and for films, for John Wick, whatever. And he did I probably watched it for 50 minutes, where he had what I believe was a silent scene of John Wick, like in a tunnel, and he's on a motorcycle, and guys ride up on a motorcycle, and he's chopping their arms off and sword fighting them. And this dude, literally, it went from silent to he added the motorcycle sounds, he added the sword sounds and the whooshing of clothes, and I was mesmerized by it. I thought it was incredible. So the question I had for you is, and you used a term a moment ago that maybe clarified a little bit. You said sound finishing. I know mixing is a part of this.
Mm-hmm.
What do the projects look like when you get them? Someone sends you a project file and it's already got some layers of sound and music in it, and you're adjusting and optimizing. Are you ever doing kind of like from silent sound design work? Talk to me a little bit about that, because it's super interesting.
Every job is different. Sometimes we've got a empty slate and I'm just trying to figure out how to like make the sound effects go, doing all the Foley, whether it's having to source real Lamborghini sounds or dropping batteries on the floor to get a certain sound, or like you've seen the people with shoes on their hands, the high heels on their hands, doing steps down the hallway. Like I've done that, but I've also sometimes, a lot of the times though, a lot of the people have temp audio in where they've tried to do their sound effects and they've gotten their sound effects from YouTube that they don't have licenses for and that sort of thing. And they've tried their best.
They've roughed it in kind of.
And I'm there to kind of enhance it, replace sounds, get the licenses, record, get actual field audio done, and then mix it and get it ready for final broadcast. And that is probably the most of the jobs that come in are probably that.
That sounds like a ton of work, especially because you mentioned like you're actually tracking down licenses and making sure you have the rights to use all these sounds. So that is today a big part of what you do.
That is a big part. I would say the biggest part of what I do is sync, but micro license sync. So what that means is synchronization rights are anytime that you link audio to video, there is a synchronization. They're in sync, and there needs to be a license for that. So you get paid for that if you create the music or the art. So in essence, I, as a person, the majority of my cash at this point comes from doing regional ads for different causes, people, different things that are not going to be run for a long period of time. So I don't necessarily get residuals on those. I just command a higher sync fee because they're not going to be played a lot, if that makes sense.
It does. Something that's going to run for a quarter or for a handful of months because it's tied to a promotional period or whatever the case.
Exactly.
Is this stuff, Darrel, that might be running on TV or radio?
TV, both? Radio, and social are all of these things. So a lot of things like political ads fall into this place, different viral social ads that are limited in scope. That's where the bulk of my money comes from, is getting those types of licenses for, or scoring jobs. You do a custom music piece for an ad. So that's where the biggest bulk comes from. And then I would say audio finishing would be second, where I'm getting audio in some capacity ready for final broadcast. And that would be that. And then the rest is, production and like personal music that I've put out, bringing revenue.
Tell me if I'm right or wrong about this. My perception is when you were producing your own music, when you're producing your artist's music, it's like a 10 out of 10 in terms of fulfillment and enjoyment. Is that an accurate statement?
When I'm yes, that is very accurate. Very accurate.
What about everything else? What about the sound finishing, the mixing, the sound design? How much is that work to you, and how much do you enjoy it?
I've gotten things so dialed in. I understand it, and I understand what people are looking for because they come to me typically for the same thing all the time. So it's not, I know that it's definitely a job, but I try to have as much fun with it as possible because I know that I can get it done pretty quickly. It's not something that really is drawn out unless it's like a bigger scene that's kind of insane. But I would say the fulfillment is there, but like it's because it's adjacent to my interest, not necessarily my specific interest. It's not my favorite, you know. But I really do enjoy it.
I feel like I can relate, which is what I do for a day job. I never ever wake up miserable. In fact, most of the time I wake up, and this is who I am, you know, in my brain chemistry, happy to go to work. I get to do what I do, and I'm learning and I'm improving. But if it was like, hey, James, you have $1 million no matter what you do, I'd probably be doing something slightly different. But right. I still enjoy it, get fulfillment out of it. So it's nice, though, because I think, again, my wife and I were both doing a little bit of research last night, this morning, and she came across an interview with you where that she passed it over to me, and I saw that was, you know, the word you use. It's like, I'm trying to be a great husband, a great father, and I'm trying to be, you know, making a living doing something that fulfills me. And it was like, yo, that resonates with me, man. I like that.
Big.
All right. So some other stuff I got here.
Yeah, I hope I'm answering.
Do you have any? Oh, dude, you're killing it. I really appreciate. I'm just trying to be cognizant of how much of your time I'm stealing as well here. We're at just over an hour, which is great. I usually go an hour 30, hour 40.
Cool.
But I'll try to keep it moving for us. Do you have any partners or employees in Declared Major as a record label, or your, you know, non-artist music business, everything else we just discussed? Do you have agents? Do you have managers, business people that you work with that get you work, or is it all you?
Okay, so for Declared Major specifically, in terms of it being a record label, it is interesting. I have a lawyer, and he's awesome.
Okay.
And I don't want to call him an employee, but he is awesome.
You're a client of his, right?
Yeah,
you use him when you need him, kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm definitely a client of his, and he is definitely paid off of but I pay this person, so it's like I don't know if this is, I don't know. We're clients of each other. How's that? I don't know, but
for sure. Well, yeah, you make him money, he makes you
right.
money.
So in essence, I have a lawyer. I do have an intern who's at Full Sail, but
nice.
She lives here. She's pretty cool. I also do have remote helpers, if you will. So we've got
virtual assistants.
I've got a virtual assistant. I do have and the virtual assistant kind of handles data entry, making sure that we have everything organized in the cloud. You know, we've got tracks, we've got all the metadata. We make sure that they have the metadata and that it's like congruent across every platform. So there is a data entry person. I do have a copywriter, but they're all remote. And I would call them employees, but they're contractors in essence. And also, I do have a lot of freelancers that I collaborate with. So it's important that we kind of distinguish between the creative side of the business, meaning like, yes, I do have session players and personnel who some are full-time and some are just gig-based and session musicians that, you know, will do a guitar part that I have, you know, or something, you know, that. And then on the other side, on the business end, you know, we have data entry people and copywriters and that sort of people. But I wouldn't go as far. I don't have any partners, and I don't have very many like full-time helpers. I have a lot of freelance people who come around and help when I need them.
Yeah, you form like Voltron when you need to, as Wu-Tang said, and then they all go their way and you go yours. I'll be honest, there isn't a right or wrong answer to that question.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, that's the right answer, which is
big bet.
I've always been in love with the idea of having a solopreneurship, which, like you said, yes, you're going to have to rely on other people. You're going to need lawyers. You might need specific help in different creative areas, but like, man, if you can run a business that sustains your life and your lifestyle and fulfills you, and you don't have to manage full-time people and health benefits and all these different things, like that's the way, if you're asking me, man. So.
That's exactly it. You said it better than I did.
Well, I appreciate you laying that out. And one of the things that I wanted to ask specifically about is I watched some of the videos on your website, as I've referenced a couple times, and with some of your Declared Major artists, the video work is crazy. Is that part of your network when you guys say, hey, this is the single or whatever, we're going to create a visual for this song? is that do you have a heavy hand in deciding who you're working with? Do you have go-to partners? Feel free to shout them out. I am a huge videography fan and editing fan, so anything you want to share there, I'd love to hear.
Big bet. So if I ever have a choice on who I want to work with in the video space, it would be my homie J.R. Strickland, who has Nocturnal as his business, Nocturnal Effects and Nocturnal Move Films, all that stuff. Nocturnal is the brand. But J.R. Strickland is the guy. He did Evan McIntosh's first video for What Dreams Are Made Of, where Evan's in a bedroom that was actually built practically on set. Yeah, that was
like, it looks almost like a big ballroom or something.
It was. We had the. It looks like I don't even know if it was a Victorian bedroom, but Evan sitting in the room, praying by the bed, sitting by the dresser, and then the room crumbles away, and then it turns into like VFX where the bed is floating through the sky. That's J.R. Strickland. Also, J.R. did he did 2 Clement videos for me. So if I have a choice, it's always J.R. But some of the other
So we're not putting JR on blast. Sorry to interrupt real quickly. So we're not putting him totally on blast. And I know that your prices might not be everybody else's prices, so you can give me somebody else's prices if you want to.
Right.
Range-wise, because I know it depends. What are the different sets? How many visual effects are going into it? Do we need extras? But what does it cost to shoot? Because these are high-end videos. These are videos that are ready for wherever they might need to go, in my opinion. What would someone expect to pay for something that's done on that level?
So every video is different. So with the Clement videos, Clement was a new artist and kind of unproven in the space, meaning I wanted to make sure that the visual of Clement was professional and real and consistent and great, but she didn't have a song that had proven anything yet.
Sure.
So I'd say that those videos would be in the range of $6,000 to $10,000 just to kind of get her face and make sure that everything's right. We're shooting on a red. We've got a little crew going, everything, and making sure that everybody's compensated. We had a stylist come out. We did everything. So that's like $6,000 to $10,000. But we had to actually rent locations and get all that stuff going. So JR's not really a run and gun type of guy. Like, pick up the camera, we got a dope backdrop, let's go. So JR's very much, there's a producer who's like lining out everything and making sure call times are there, crafty, food is available for people. We're taking the scheduled union breaks. You know what I mean? Like, we make sure that we have permits and all that stuff. So JR's not really run and gun. So like you're not really going to see less than that because you're employing a lot of professional people,
Thank you.
But with Evan, we shot What Dreams Are Made Of after What Dreams Are Made Of went viral and went dumb. And at that time, Evan has since signed to a bigger label situation, and I'm not sure what's going on in that world. But at the time of What Dreams Are Made Of, the masters were under Declared Major, and so we were going viral and having this incredible moment. So all of the cash that kind of came in was coming directly to us. And since Declared Major is distributed by The Orchard, which is a Sony company, we get major label rates instead of indie artist rates. So it's just a little bit of a difference in terms of how the finances break down, and it ends up being more, obviously. So with that, we took that budget and we took that money that came in and invested in Evan's video. So I think we spent a little more than that in that world to create a full world and a full VFX world.
So more than 10, so like 12,
so more than
10,
10, yeah, around there.
Okay.
But that was a homie hookup because JR.
I realize the prices that you get are maybe not the prices that everybody would get. If
JR was the best man at my wedding, so like that, what that was literally cost with everybody kind of taking a break, just to kind of help this
because
kid out.
because they're with it, because they're down to again, they're all trying to make a living too, but this isn't just some random that they're working for. This is someone they probably believe in and all that good stuff.
Yeah,
that's cool. I mean, dude, the visuals are in line with the cost, and this is the kind of stuff I really want this show to give people. Is like, look, we're not saying you have to go and hire someone who's got the top of the line equipment. And by the way, for the listeners, a Red camera is a cinema badass camera system that, not everybody's got, and craft services on set where everyone can eat, like you said. It doesn't have to be that, but if you want the results that you guys are getting, that's what it needs to be, and this is what it needs to cost. That's cool. Hey, another quick zoom in real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So Evan's song goes viral, goes crazy. Where does the money come in from? Meaning, and one of the questions I had for later on, but we'll just ask now, is like, do you make any damn money from Spotify? Like, if something gets a few million views off Spotify, is that significant money? Or what are the other channels that money comes in from when a song like that goes crazy? Is it radio as well, or hit me with it?
Yeah, so streaming does give money, especially if you own the master, you've written the song, and you've produced the song. It does. So I'd say that for every million streams, it's between $4,000 and $5,000, and it kind of fluctuates based on the country that people are listening from, and also your DSP deal. So if you're at DistroKid, I feel like DistroKid or TuneCore or one of the more consumer level, hey, I have $19.99 per month and I want to get my music on DSPs, that's going to pay at a slightly lower rate than what a bigger distributor like the Orchard or, a major label would get. So
these companies, DSPs, digital streaming platforms, right?
Yeah.
You can't just go and put your music on Spotify. You have to work through an intermediary, a third party.
Yeah.
And your point is there's kind of legit but smaller players, and there's the ones the major labels play with. And depending on who you're getting distributed to these platforms through, that kind of dictates your rate of pay on some level.
Yes. Now, I'm not saying that it's wildly different because I don't necessarily know, but I do know that there is a discrepancy between them. And I came out, because of my situation, I come out on the higher pay scale side. So I'd say that it's between 4,000 and 5,000 per million streams, but every platform has different payout rates as well. So with YouTube, as soon as I upload it to my DSP, even if there's not a music video, it goes on to YouTube Music with just the cover art, and that also pays. And the Orchard also collects if you were to upload a fan video with my music in it, it would collect, and I also would get, the ad revenue from that. So if
creators use your music and they pop off and get 5 million views, you get paid for that.
Right.
Because YouTube, for people who don't know, when you upload music or when you upload a video to YouTube and there's music, it gets identified. Hey, this is copyright held by Darrel Greene, declared major records. Okay, damn, I never actually thought of that.
So
does YouTube pay better than Spotify? Because I've always felt like they're actually pretty well compensated their creators. Is that not true?
I don't really know. Like, I honestly don't really know what the different rates are because my check comes in a lump sum. And I could look at but I do know that the majority of my streams are from Spotify because of algorithmic support. For my personal projects, they come from an algorithmic place. So meaning Spotify is suggesting my song after you play a similar song on your own accord. So I'm getting a lot of just like kind of piggyback just because they know that if you're a fan of this type of music, you're going to like my music. So yeah, it's a pretty cool thing. And so with that, I do know that we did do physical copies of Evan's album before a bigger label came into the picture. We did do physical copies, so we get money from that, the sales of that, and also just I don't know that I mean, yeah, I do make money from Spotify. Excuse me, can you hold up?
Yeah, you're good.
I do make money from Spotify for sure, and I would say that for me personally, my take home after paying out other rights holders and all that stuff, excuse me, I would say that my share would be between $20,000 and $30,000 a year, which isn't crazy. I know people who are making that per month or every few weeks, but for me and my small little outfit, I'm able to just off of streaming in a very passive way, reliably make a modest salary,
Yeah.
in some
Well,
way,
in
shape, or form.
perpetuity, so to speak. This stuff,
Yeah.
like you said, the
So-
algorithm will show you love, especially as you continue to make and publish more music. And it's not like, I mean, I'm sure that there are things that, go viral and have their moment for a number of months and then maybe cool off, but like that content is always there. And I know how it is to discover an artist. I mean, I discovered a couple of your artists today, and I'm going back and listening to their old music. You don't go, oh, I only care about the last album. It's like, if you like this artist, you probably want to go back and listen. So you're building a foundation over time, and that's a cool thing. You've answered the question beautifully, man. You've really gone into a lot of great detail that I think is going to be helpful for people. The only thing I'm curious to know about, the other thing rather, is got a new artist, you want to do a visual for them, they're your artist, and I might be hopping around a little bit here, but what's that situation? You sign someone, what's required of them in terms of work product or work ethic or both, and what are they entitled to in terms of access to you, recording time, stuff like that. And I guess there's a lot of questions. I'll recap some of them, but
Yeah.
if you want to create a visual, is that an investment you're making and then kind of, hoping to recoup later on through, digital streaming plays or what have you? Talk to me. I know that's a whole lot. Like I said, I'm happy to recap it, but hit me with some of that.
Yeah, so in terms of an artist that I'm working with, and if they're signed to my situation, I do believe that every situation is a little bit different. It really depends on what the skill set is of the artist. I typically really enjoy vocalists with like unique tones, like really cool vibe, and then just above and beyond songwriting skill. If you can write yourself, oh my goodness, you are my best friend, right? Just because I've come to love the amending and like kind of editing process, or just like improvement, value add process, as opposed to like idea generation, like point from scratch. I love taking an idea and enhancing it. That's like my favorite thing to do. So with that, that's kind of what I'm looking for kind of personally. Lately, the deal structure for the people that I've worked with is a 50-50 split. I will handle production, you will handle songwriting and performance. Some other people I have to write and kind of get writers in or figure it out. But as of right now, the latest deal structures are you write and sing and perform, and I will produce and distribute, right? And so from there, we kind of work out a percentage that kind of is contingent, but for the most part, it's 50-50. We'll split after recoup at a certain percent. So like what I mean by that is we'll go like this. You do the song, you write a song, I think it's really great. I will handle production, right? Then we do it, we put it out. If I shoot a music video for it, I'm fronting cash for that. Mm-hmm. Then, as royalties start coming in from the music being streamed, mechanical royalties start coming in from music being streamed, then we will break down a certain percentage that will go toward recouping that initial fee, but then the rest is split 50-50. So like a part of that goes toward, okay, we're going to make sure this goes down. And then when this is paid off, we're back at 50-50. So like we've just used my money as credit to kind of get this thing going. We pay the fee, and then we're splitting 50-50. And it's worked out well, especially for younger creatives. And it gives them a sense of, ownership, which they should have, but it also sets the tone for any future deals to where they can feel comfortable in asking for a percentage that is fair and equitable for themselves down the line. So that is kind of the situation that we've been working with. That's and it's great, worked well.
That's great, man. And one last question, hopefully a quick one, about I guess kind of the creative process, which is like, do you often work on music beats, for a simple way to put it, and then artists come in and listen and say that one. I mean, I know that's sometimes the way things work. Or, the picture you kind of painted was people will go and write music, write words, maybe to music, maybe to not, and then they come in and perform it in however they might perform it for you, and you go, got it. Let me craft a soundscape that's going to work with it. Does it work both ways? Do you prefer it to work one way or the other? Words first versus music first? What is your general process?
So the general process is we start with a chord progression or a beat of some kind that they're inspired by. And music is always first for me because melody is first for me. So the idea is that I will always try to make sure that like the music as a standalone moves me and I'm in love with it before words are even added to it. So I'd say that the majority of the situation is a person is starting with a chord progression or a beat. Or they have a melody themselves. They've written it and they know how they want to sing it, and then I'll just find the chord progression that kind of coincides with it. But it's never just like words on a page, can you make this fit? And it's never that. There's always a little bit more of a vision in place. And I'd say that, I enjoy working music first, but I haven't had a lot of situations recently in my life to just sit down and make beats. Like, I don't just make beats for fun anymore, and I've just started to get into that with the social media videos and all that stuff that I've been doing lately. Like, I just started to get into making beats for fun with no outlet in mind, just to kind of get used to new sounds, get blending, just to get better overall and to kind of refine my skills and explore something that ordinarily an artist wouldn't, take. That is where I'm at now. But because of the volume of jobs and the volume of work that I have, I don't really have things that just sit around. I don't, like, I know people who have hard drives filled with beats, and then people come over, listen, and they write, and then they go about their way with a new song. But I've just got so many projects going on, and I'm just one person. Everything that I have,
everything you're producing is for a reason.
Right. So, I feel like
not a lot of waste, which is nice.
That's it. There's not a lot of waste. Exactly. That's exactly it. So it's tough for me, and I'm trying to find that spot, and try to carve out time to just make beats and then to have a nice little catalog. But nah, man, we got real songs with real people with real stakes going right now. Yeah. So it's kind of,
I like that better.
Tough. Yeah.
All right, switching gears a little bit. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. There was some time ago you shared a clip, I guess, to Instagram, or a couple of clips of your music on like reality TV shows. I think it was specifically reality TV, but there might have been some other stuff where like whatever, there's a dramatic argument happening on screen and like there's music in the background, which as a viewer you sometimes don't even notice, but it like adds to the mood or whatnot. I guess first question, am I correctly remembering that's something you're involved with?
Yeah, so I have one placement in a reality show, which was Love is Blind on Netflix.
Yes.
The rest of the videos,
I watched it.
Yeah, the rest of the shows that I've done were like drama shows. You know what I mean?
How does that come together? Like, are you going out and getting that work? Are people finding you? Talk a little bit about that. How you're getting those placements, and also, and maybe this is about like the syncing fee or whatever you were talking about. But how are you how do you find the work, and then how are you paid for that stuff? Right.
So there are a lot of different ways to get it. So we have to choose one at any point. So the fact is that, so the reality show came from a music library. There are big libraries that represent artist catalogs or artist songs. They accept songs into their catalog, and then they pitch every time they get a request from a TV show. So that's the most kind of straightforward way to kind of get it done. There are people who are kind of working on your behalf to kind of administer. They have the right to kind of sign off on things, and you write a song, make a beat, do whatever, get it to the music library. The music library will pitch it to when it's appropriate. They'll call you when they've got something, and most of them are probably pretty clear. So what that means is like you can't really say no, like it's just like, hey, I'm letting you know that you got this here. Yeah. So that's kind of the situation that you're in. That there. The bigger songs, the songs that were on the drama shows, those were because Evan McIntosh was and is a artist that has some name and presence and has representation in the sync space. So Evan's catalog, at least a portion of the catalog, is under, maybe I'm not 100% sure if it's a sync licensing company. There's a sync licensing company that will field requests from music supervisors to use Evan's music because Evan is a popular artist,
right.
Or they will pitch. So it depends on the case. Jesty Beatz, who has a project called Holy Mattress Money, where I will write and produce songs and have other artists feature on them and put it out, kind of like a Calvin Harris or DJ Khaled type of situation. But yeah. I have a song with Evan McIntosh that is under declared major, and HBO reached out via email to me asking to use it in a television show. They'll find the rights holder and will literally send you a message if you're on of a certain stature. You know what I mean?
They're seeking you out because someone involved in the show was like, "This is the vibe we need for this scene and this song." It's not just not downplay, but not random music. This is a song with words, and this is what we're lending the cool factor of this song to our show.
Right. So it depends. It could be a music supervisor, it could be a music sync company, it could be a sync agent, or it can be a music supervisor reaching out to you, or a music coordinator on the actual show reaching out to you, trying to figure out how to make that thing work. So I'd answer all of the above are different ways that these syncs have happened. I don't think I've had more happen. I haven't had one way happen more than another. It's always been, kind of that. And so what happens is, generally, unless you do a buyout, I don't really have buyouts, you basically get paid a sync fee, and you have to split that sync fee with your lawyer and the rights holder. There's a fee up front where they will give you a chunk of money up front. And then once the show airs, you get back end royalties every time somebody kind of watches it. So streaming platform like Netflix, who, kind of licenses Love is Blind, they have to pay, a compulsory license to the actual rights holders of that song. So you get like a little bit of money every quarter just based on how many times it's been streamed. So that's a residual element, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, and that's nice. I was just listening to a podcast the other day about the guy that started Kona Ice, and he was talking about how he used to sell vacuums, and he was the man at selling vacuums, and he was balling out of control doing it. He's like, but after a while, I was just like, I hate that I always have to sell another vacuum to make money. He's like, I want to sell something that's going to continue to make me money. And I think that's, you said the magic word, which is residuals. And even in the industry that I work in, our customers, the people we sell computer hardware to, resell the hardware, and in some cases give away the hardware to get payment processing residuals. All we want is to own that piece and get a little piece of a penny every time someone swipes their card. So nice. That's a good gig. All right, man, I'm looking at some of my questions. You've very graciously already kind of answered a lot of them, which is cool because I want to get into some of the creative stuff. But before that, and I guess this is creative stuff, your space, the declared major, I'll call it studio space. Remember you sharing some videos, some photos of building that space out. Tell me a little bit about that. How much space do you have? About what did it cost you to, I guess, do the build out? What are you paying rent? And what is the space to you? What distinct areas do you have? Just talk to me in general about it.
So right now I have a 2,800 square foot freestanding building in Ohio, in the Cleveland area. It was a giant garage. It used to be a car wash and a dog groomer before I got there. So it's built to like handle a lot of water. It's not necessarily the most ideal place, but it was a great price, and it is a mile away from where I live, and I love it. We're in a it's pretty cool, man. We're in a multi-phase kind of a build out where we've got the front room done and all the equipment's in there and it's all great. That is done, and I work out of that while we've started the renovation of the second portion of the left side of the building. We've got the floors done, the walls up, the sound treatment up. We got a booth built in there. We're just now waiting for equipment and running of all of the cables kind of thing. That kind of technical side. The other side of the building, it's all segmented off through doors and all this kind of cool stuff. The other side is going to be more of a production side, meaning I want to make sure that we have adequate space to film. It's maybe like a smallish studio kind of vibe, where meaning like film studio kind of vibe, to where we can do a lot more projects on that side in-house instead of renting out spaces every time we need space to kind of do it. So, and we're compartmentalizing that side and also creating a rehearsal space, a live room like rehearsal space, so that people can come in and kind of rehearse and not, be bothering other people or be bothered themselves. So in essence, as of right now, it is not open to the public. It is literally my place to be and create and to just live. Because, being a new dad and I've got a toddler running around here, and we're kind of running out of space. This is quickly becoming this child's house. I'm bombarded with toys and all kinds of wild stuff, and I can't make noise as loud as I want to here anymore, So I have that building as my man cave. It's a mile away. I can ride my bike there. I can walk there. I can drive, and just get in there and instantly scream as loud as I want, and no one can hear me or will care. And that is what that building is for. If I don't have a place to create, this whole thing goes up in flames.
How special was it, Darrel? How special was it to get that space? What did it feel like to finally have 2,800 square feet to kind of model in your vision and, like you said, to walk into and just get crazy as you want to get?
So before that, I was in maybe 150 square foot office building in Wadsworth, Ohio, and it was really great. Those people were supportive. It was a 24-hour lockout situation, but I shared a wall with a string violin teacher, and nothing cuts through a wall like better than the sound of like bad violin playing. And imagine trying to like record something and then like all of a sudden, all right, here's some terrible scales for so like it was the worst. So when I finally got that one spot, it was amazing. It was next level, just to know that I kind of had a space and that it wasn't far. Wadsworth is like, I want to say an hour away, kind of, but here it is a mile away. And so it was very awesome, liberating. I could stand up and burst into song immediately.
I love it. Yeah, that's a dream of mine. I'll be honest. There are times where I'm driving around my city, and usually, especially like closer to the city, I see just like old storefronts and places where I'm like, I'm sure it's not cheap, but like, God, like how inspiring would it be to not only have a space, but have a space right here where I walk out and I kind of feel the energy. And one day, man, so
it's probably cheaper than you think. It's probably cheaper than you think.
Especially right now, where like a lot of people left offices and left space. And it was funny. Someone said, I think maybe it was my father-in-law he sold a dental practice, and he mentioned how he had bought the space, and how right now probably wasn't a good time to invest in like commercial spaces. Meaning, if you're buying it, planning to rent it out, and I'm like, well, what if you just want to use it? It's probably the perfect time to be buying a commercial space.
Definitely.
That's sick. So I imagine you've leased it, right? You've leased it for 20 years or something like that.
I asked him if I could buy it. He said maybe he would sell it in the future, but I am definitely in a lease. It is, I want to say my current lease is $825. It went up. It was lower. It went up, but I will say that they nickel and dime you in commercial space. Be ready. Like, I'm required to have certain lights on at all times, inside and outside, and that just kills the power bill. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the power bill is nuts just because I have to have certain lights on as a part of like the city's rules, you know. So it gets nuts, but just base rent. Think about. Yeah, I did not think about that. So,
Darrel, let me dig into creative stuff. Which artist or musician influenced you beyond the music? So on the business side, on the strategy, creative, aesthetic side, or even on the entrepreneurial side. I mean, you know, there's a lot of artists that they are great artists on the music side, but they also have created movements or apparel lines or whatever. Were there any artists growing up or now who, you know, you kind of looked up to and influenced you in your career?
Yeah, man. I would say that the two people that got me the most were Master P and Prince. Master P and Prince. Master P definitely had a stronghold on me in the late 90s, just with product differentiation in the marketplace when you had those weird album covers. And the actual like cases were different colors and a different like style. I thought that was crazy. And the fact that he had kind of an assembly line, like kind of frequency of releasing, he had the camaraderie. And if you really pay attention, like early No Limit stuff, every person in that crew that was like popping kind of had like a catchphrase or like a little sound effect. Like Silk the Shocker would have like electric noises behind him, and Master P had Mia X had mama and all that stuff. Like they all had their own like theme, womp womp. Like they had sonic brands before anybody knew. Like, you know, and it was
before those words existed. Yeah,
and that was what, and I understood that, and I just remember when at the end of some of the Master P songs, Master P would be like if you got it, like you like just keep your head up, player, or something. I was like, Master P thinks I'm a player, like, you know what I mean? Like I really like felt like he was talking to me.
Speaking to me.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So like one of those things, I really gravitated to not only like some of the energy and the music and the vibe, but just the like crew element and the branding on all fronts. Whether I wanted a tank necklace so bad, like I just want, you know what I mean? So Master P, I wanted to be a part of this. And then I'd say Prince would be number 2, where it was just like, oh yeah, I want to do what I want to do. Like I want to go sonically wherever I want and kind of do it. And also, like, I don't know where he was business wise, but I do know that him, the musicology tour with the physical albums being tied to ticket prices, and then doing that whole like selling tickets and that giving you a free album, and then that kind of manipulated the album sales. Like I thought that was amazing.
That is cool. I didn't know about that.
Yeah, that happened actually when I was at OU. He went to Columbus, and he was giving out albums with the ticket. The ticket sales included the price of the album, and would give everybody the album. So
genius.
I thought that was sick. And he was also really early on the like computer club, like fan club, like he had the MPG club and all kind of cool stuff. So like I really responded to artists with really cool branding, and also just like that knew how to build community. And I'm more impressed with people who know how to create community with recurring revenue built into that model. That's like one of my favorite things. So I'm leaning and looking into potentially going into a Patreon type situation where like our people get maybe some sort of custom like beat tape, whether we record it on actual cassette or if we are doing like lathe cut vinyls every month or whatever we're doing. I want to make sure that I can create a unique product and get it to people who want it monthly, but also have recurring revenue. I want to do that. So that's
love where your head is at. And man, we'll take this opportunity just because I think it's at the end of my list. But the home and bones, the hat you're wearing. I remember years ago that popped up, and the reason I'm bringing it up now is because I'm just sitting here thinking about like the idea of, God, what are they, like the monthly subscription boxes you get, those concepts. GQ used to do them, every different hobby and interest has them. But yeah, what if it was like there was an apparel component, there was, like you said, a unique piece of vinyl or a beat tape, or like you could tie in some of the different stuff you're into. But with that in mind, tell me about Home and Bones, kind of briefly. It's yours, right? Because I remember when you first started popping up rocking the gear, I'm like, is this Jesty's business or is this something he's involved in helping promote? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Right. So it's mine. It started when I was in an interesting place transitionally, just trying to figure out where I wanted to be in the world. I do know that I have a very big Ohio pride, and Ohio's my home, and these are some bones underneath it, right? So home and bones. So I was walking down the street one day, and I was headed to the gas station because I wanted some freaking peanuts, the honey roasted peanuts. And I was walking from the studio to the gas station, and I see a piece of trash on the ground. And I go to pick up the trash, but it turns out it's money. And then I'm like, oh, I got $1. I can get 2 peanuts for, 2 for $1, honey roasted nuts. I'm like, yes, let's go. Then I keep unfolding, and I see a 5. And I'm like, oh, I can get a lot of peanuts. $5? All right, heck yeah. Then I open it up. It's a 50. I'm like, oh, let me put it in my wallet, right? What? I'm like, whoa, I found $50 on the ground. And so I was talking to my friend JT, who is an awesome photographer out in LA and in Texas. He's like kind of moving around. But JT Gallery, he's incredible. And we were just kind of talking. He's like, yeah, man, let's figure out some ways to make money. I'm like, well, let's go out to eat. So we went to eat, and basically he's like, yo, what's up with that, with like doing a hat brand? I heard you did a logo or something. It was this. I'm like, well, I have it here, but my homie who has a hat brand didn't give me the details. I've asked him so many times where he went to get these hats made. Like, he's like, ask him again. So my homie E-Dub, I go up to him like, yo, tell me where you get your hats made. And then it took him a minute to tell me. He told me. I went downtown LA, met the dude. We did the business. I went to the garment district, and I saw all the blank hats and all this stuff. The greatest feeling in the world is walking into this store and seeing all of these different like hats with such potential. You know what I mean? And I was just going in there, feeling the hat, like, ooh, this brim is too short. It's not gonna work. Oh, this one, ooh, snapback. Or are we gonna do, fitted? Like, I'm like, okay. Boom, I found the perfect one that feels good. Snapbacks at the time were hit or miss because they were coming back, but like sometimes they're not built for big heads, man. And my head. Right.
That's my issue too.
Right. So I found the perfect one. I went and I took it across the street. In 2 days, I had my sample, and we ran it up. JT, the photographer, we took 2 colors. We had red, we had black, and we took pictures with everybody we knew with these 2 hats. Started that, did the website, and, kind of went crazy. And it was at the point where I knew that the majority of my fan base who was from Ohio, I don't know if they still live there, but they were from there. And, I just kind of started posting about it and doing all that stuff. And it got to the point where we were getting orders consistently. I would be shipping stuff out every day, but I was shipping them out from California, and people were all like, why is this Ohio brand coming from California? I'm like, well, I'm in California, but like, right? So it was just one of those things where I knew that it was just the right place, right time. I forgot to tell you, I used the $50 that I found on the ground to get the 2 hats made. So like, it was just one of those things where, I found something and I turned it into something else. I applied for the actual copyright of the symbol and got it. But they don't tell you that when you get the ownership of the copyright, that you're required to defend the copyright within your, like, what are they called? The category that your copyright is kind of held in. So clothing, so jewelry, whatever. Yeah, you have to kind of specify where you own it. And so in essence, we were moving, got pretty big, and then people started kind of like ripping it off and doing all this stuff. And like I was required, and I found out that there was a person who kind of used it before me but hadn't copyrighted it. And so we had to work out an agreement to where he's able to use it. I had to grant him an unconditional license in order, you know what I mean? I had to do a lot of business to make sure that I could hold this copyright and then do a lot of defending. So with that, we're now in a space where we're going to rebrand. We've got new stuff in the works. We've got an Ohio factory that's going to be making these things. So like everything's going to be in Ohio for Ohio. It's going to be amazing. So that's where we are right now with it. We're going to do a rebrand on the website. No more WordPress. We're taking it straight to Shopify. We're going to make sure that everything's seamless and amazing. But for a while, we were kind of down because we kind of had to defend the copyright. And that took more time than and as that's taking time, my music is taking off. You know what I mean? So it's like I was trying to do both, but now that, you know, I've got some people in place and we've got systems in place in the music to kind of keep growing, and I'm not like physically responsible for every button press, like we can now move on to kind of rebrand and blow it up even further. Yeah.
That's super cool, man. One thing it made me think is just like, it's incredible what you can do with a couple of samples, a camera, and some know-how on the web in terms of like launching a brand before you really have it all. And like, in my opinion, that's a smart way. It's almost like, let's see if there's legs here. Let's see if people are interested in this, and maybe we roll out a pre-order to try to get some money flowing in before we actually have to go and produce it. We just got a couple or whatever. But it's funny you mentioned Shopify without me asking, man. This is my 4th episode of the show, and 3 of the 4 were either using Shopify or getting ready to move to it. It just seems like it's an incredible platform. And even on the consumer side, you order something, the shop app pings, it's on its way. So I think you guys are going to really like that. That's going to be great.
Yeah, I love the one-click upsell, man. The fact that you can have the one-click upsell in the Shopify cart. What are we talking about? Let's go.
They're killing it.
That's
it, man. Shopify really, again, point of sale, which it's a piece of Shopify's point of sale is kind of my company's business. We don't sell point of sale, but we sell to people who do. And man, it really just feels like between Toast, and I wouldn't expect you to know who Toast is on the restaurant point of sale side, and then Shopify on the retail side for small businesses and merchants, like those two are both just killing it and really proving out how important branding is, you know, like not only building a great product, but building a great brand that people, know. And anyhow, moving on, man, because we're at almost 2 hours here, and I appreciate you being so gracious with your time. Because there's still like a lot I want to talk about. I'll be choiceful here, though. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but when it comes to the artists that you sign, you mentioned you're in love with the songwriter, the person with the original ideas, but also, and I don't want this to come across as shallow or whatnot, but when you meet an artist, when you discover an artist, are you also thinking about their vibe, their aesthetic, what they look like and how they might show up, to a global audience online? And also, do you test out their work ethic? Do you collaborate with these people before you make a commitment to them? How do you feel that out to see if it's going to work?
We definitely test it out before we start signing talks and all that stuff. But it's not as like intensive as you think. It's more so, I need to see that you post on the internet, I want to see that you post on the internet. I want to see songs that you've written. I want to see that you're capable of writing, thinking it through. Like, I have certain touch points in terms of like my creative songs, that certain things need to happen in terms of production or songwriting. And if you've got that naturally, like Evan had it naturally. Evan naturally had what I worked really hard to like cultivate in myself. So that was a no-brainer. Do I care about how they look? I care that they're confident in themselves, Like if you like people who look a certain way tend to perform well or better than other people. But in this day and age, with like just targeting on the internet, I feel like every song has a place. And when we started in 2017 really honing in, I was doing a lot of digital, like Facebook ads and marketing in that way. And I was able to break songs just through Facebook alone. And it was a crazy wild time, but that time it was nuts. If you changed your relationship status, I could target you. So if you went from in a relationship to single, I could put a breakup song in front of you. Like, you know what I mean? And that's
a crazy angle, yeah.
That's what I was doing. So it was, and it didn't really have anything to do with how the person looked. It was all about what that end user was going through. So I feel like that level of privacy may have been invasive, and it may have been crazy, and it doesn't exist anymore. I can't target like that, but I can find ways to get a song in front of the right person. You know, it doesn't really matter what you look like, but I'd rather you be put together and neat and have an idea of how you want to present yourself than, you know, not.
And I love how you answer that, which is, doesn't matter that you're the best looking guy or that you're, you know, beautiful woman or whatever in between. It's important that you are confident in who you are so you can go and be an artist that people can connect with. That's really well said. I like that, man. Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Moving on. So your personal social, you know, I've noticed, again, I haven't been like clocking you super close, but I see your stuff regularly. I noticed that you're starting to do a little bit of like, what I would call like tutorial type stuff, showing people how to achieve different things within, you know, the production tools and stuff like that. But talk to me a little bit about your use of social. What are your key channels in terms of like, you know, are you on YouTube, Instagram, or whatever? And at a high, or I guess not even at a high level, do you think about it strategically, or you're like, you know what, I'm always up to something interesting and cool. I'm just going to share things as they hit me. How calculated are you in what you're sharing and what you're hoping to get out of it?
Okay, so it depends. It also depends on what aspect that we're talking here. Because if we're talking about my personal Instagram page, which is probably my main outlet at this point, I would say my goal is to create content that entertains, but also tries to find that place where I'm adding value of some sort. So I do a lot of tutorial-based videos now. Talking about how to achieve certain things in FL Studio, which is something that I've used for over 20 years. So I felt like it was something that I could talk about, because a lot of the times these shortcuts save me so much time, and I just want to give that away, because that's something that I can give away easily. You know what I mean? It's the information's out there. It's just I can articulate it and, you know, share it in a way and format. So with that, I've batched a lot of that content. So like right now, I feel like I've only posted 2 or 3 on social, but I have maybe 25 to 30 already done in that space. And so in essence, what's happening is that type of content that I've done, I just did what I call points. So I'm doing this, pointing, doing all this, and then that's all chopped up and segmented. Then, depending on what we're trying to solve, I will do a voiceover, and then while I'm doing the voiceover, we'll do the screen recording, and then I have somebody who puts it all together. So I don't have to think about that past doing my voiceover and screen recording at this point. So
is that Fiverr that you're relying on to pull it all together?
This guy, he's not on Fiverr. But okay. I mean, he might be on Fiverr, but this is a remote guy that I found who I did like just a online job listing. Just, hey, looking for a remote employee, videographer, and he responded. This person is on a weekly salary, and we just knock these videos out. And a part of his job, and he also is a FL Studio user, so a part of his job is, you know, kind of doing some of the research on like what we should be covering, you know, because he knows the
what are people curious about? What are the frequently asked questions that 1 million people have asked, but another 5 million people want to know but didn't Google it, so you're going to give it to them?
Right.
All
And
right.
so on the other side, a lot of the content that's actually getting the most engagement for me is me showcasing some of the songs that I have in television shows, because I think that that is an outcome that a lot of people want for themselves. So I think that it's only natural that I end up finding a way to kind of cover that either in social or behind a paywall or whatever, but like giving people that game so that they can, kind of create for themselves an opportunity. So yeah, I feel like that is the most engaged with content, meaning like people are liking it and sharing it, but also sending me DMs like, hey, how are you doing this? So,
Right.
but with social for me, just like how I told you when I saw you perform and I saw something working for you and I was like, okay, let me take it. Like that's what I'm doing to this day. So a lot of my social is, A/B testing and trying to figure out what the best outcome is and how I can like replicate those results across various, pieces of content. So what I'm doing now, what I started off doing was posting every day. Like I was posting every day because I can get that feedback every day. And what am I changing? I'm changing my hat. I'm changing the hoodie. I'm changing the background LED light color. I'm changing all of this to kind of see if there's a correlation between views or engagement and these different settings. Then now that I figured that out, I'm like, okay, I figured out that blue background lights, this hat, this shirt performs well. Static or zoom in footage, which one works better? So I have a static video and then I have a video that's slowly pushing in. All right, pushing in works better. Okay, so now I know that when I create this particular type of content, we're going to make sure that in post we're pushing in. Yeah, it's literally just A/B testing and figuring out what works, and then from there, figuring out how to get it in front of people. And I will say this, and I need people to know this, that there is no business in the world that relies solely on organic, algorithmic love from some magical fairy algorithm. There's no business in the world that relies solely on that. If you do, awesome, you're a freaking unicorn. But
Yes,
I
you are.
was not given Instagram algorithmic love. Not anymore. My engagement is down. And I have zero problem with boosting my content to get it in front of the people that it's going to serve. I have no problem with running ads on my content to get it in front of the people that it's going to serve. A lot of people who create content or create albums or make music, what you do is you post on your social media for your followers and a percentage of your followers see it, and then you get disgruntled when your streams aren't where you want them, your sales aren't where you want them, everything is not working out. Why? It's because you think that you're marketing to people, but you're not marketing. Marketing requires some sort of transformational situation with another person to kind of get it in front of a person. If you are just nurturing, that's cool. If Instagram is your nurture spot, you're nurturing the people who already know and love and support you, cool. Keep nurturing those people. But at some point, if you want to grow, you have to make sure that you're also doing outreach and getting in front of new people. And if you're a musician and the only place that you're outreaching and getting in front of new people is like doing live local shows, cool, but it also doesn't really translate the same as like digital, where on digital people feel like the only way they can support you is by giving you money and giving you shares and attention, which is what you ultimately want. That is what I will say. So stop being afraid to advertise, get on the train, and start getting results for yourself. There.
Darrel, that was epic, dude. That was so good. I mean,
there it is.
paid social is it is the overwhelming part of my job, right? And so it's funny because in LinkedIn circles, not to go too far down a rabbit hole, in marketing LinkedIn circles, which is a social network as nerdy as it is that I spend a lot of time on, people will push the false narrative that like you can just live and eat on organic alone. It's like, don't get me wrong, you can gain positive signals, like you said, experimenting, and man, the level to which you are experimenting, I did not expect that, and that's super duper impressive. And like, I feel like we could do another podcast just on that. And I'm super interested. Like, honestly, I'm more interested right now. One of the many reasons I started this podcast, number one, was to learn from people like you, because I would love to be a solopreneur, business owner one day. Number two, though, was that I wanted a content engine that I could use to learn from. Meaning, this is going to be a 2 hour and 15-minute podcast. It's going to go to YouTube, Spotify, wherever the hell else that it goes, Apple Podcasts. And then I've got notes on this piece of paper on all the clips that I'm going to make, that I'm going to put on TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Instagram. For me, this is a way to learn and a way to experiment with building audiences. And to your point, man, almost immediately I started learning, like, dude, just a clip of two people talking, like, especially because my initial strategy was I want to get like a full thought. I want you to get a full thought out so people can have like the whole thing. Now what I realize is what I really should be trying to do is just take a moment where you said something funny to get someone to go, hey, that seems like it might be worth watching. Right? So like maybe that's the story and then the reel is longer or whatever to get people to go watch a portion of the full things. I know very few people are going to watch through 2 hours and 15 minutes, but your point about boosting posts too. These social networks are in business. You have you've got 5,000 followers on Jesty Beatz at Instagram. When you post, depending on, whatever, there's just a lot that goes into it. They're not showing it to all 5,000 of your followers, right? Like they're showing it to a small percentage. And if you want to reach even all of the people that follow you, not to mention others that could and should be following you, you got to pay, man. That's why these platforms exist. So enough said on that topic, dude. That was amazing though. Thank you for that.
Big bet.
Okay. Cool. So you hit me with a whole bunch. This is good stuff. All right, man. We're in the home stretch here.
Cool.
I'm hitting you with a couple questions that I didn't give you heads up on.
Okay.
You can take a second on this, or you can just shoot from the cuff. How have you been able to succeed in music and create a true living doing this where so many others have failed? Why do you think that you have succeeded in this lane?
I have succeeded because I did not stop, and I'm always looking for feedback, and I make the adjustments to see if it works. That's it. It's always being humble enough to hear the feedback, see the feedback, and to implement the changes. And I feel like that is the reason. And then like now it's just a war of attrition. I've been doing it for so long, and I've been putting up so many shots that at some point I know that I'm going to win. Like, you know what I mean? It's just that law of averages kind of thing. So I feel like that is a big reason why.
I agree.
And now if we're talking about music, like as a kid, I was obsessed with music, and I feel like songs got stuck in my head a little worse than it got stuck for other people. Like I would be tormented by songs. When I was in third grade, that dun 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 dun, that song, we heard it in music class, and she told us a story about this kidnapped princess and troll or something, this troll king, and I was like terrified. And then I would hear this music and it would loop and loop and loop in my head to the point where I had to talk to my teacher in my other class, and I'm like, I can't get the song out of my head. They're like, what song? I'm like, da 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 da. We talked about, and then I had to figure it out. So I've had a deep connection with music and like catchiness, and I haven't been afraid to kind of explore that. And also because I did so many shows, so many push shows, I would take the feedback of what worked and what didn't work in a live setting, and I would like use that info to influence the next songs that I would make, or like I don't shy away from, experimentation in that space, and then like executing as best as I can. And I feel like people pick up on that and get it. So I like catchy songs, therefore I make catchy songs, and then I check to see if they're catchy and edit them if they aren't. That's it.
I mean, you've referred to editing a couple of times. I made a note for myself like a week or so ago, because I do a decent amount of video editing these days, and really a lot of it just for fun and experimentation. I get a new pair of shoes and I open it and I make a cool little clip of like every little cut of opening the box, and I love it. And I just feel like, I don't know, I didn't flesh out the idea yet, but just I love the process of editing. It's a process of making decisions, what to keep and what to get rid of. And anyway, don't have a deeper point to make other than I think a lot about how editing can apply in different aspects of our life. And the thing that you said, I also want to just going to emphasize for everyone listening, because there's so many things out there that you say and it's like, oh yeah, no shit, but it's really not. Meaning you say it and it sounds like obvious advice. And the thing that you said is you look for the feedback. And you get your ego. Not everyone's got an ego. You didn't have an ego, you wouldn't be as talented and good at what you do as you are. But to be able to put it aside for a minute and go, I liked this, I thought this was good or this was great, and it wasn't. Change it. And the next thing might also not be, received well. Change it. Like I'm starting to get there with stuff that I'm doing as well. Again, even stuff that I edit where I'm like, ooh, this is great. And I put it out there and I'm like, oh, damn. Like the retention rate on this was super low. This was 5 times longer than it should have been. Again, just little fun edits I'm doing of stuff. And I'm like, this should have been a 7-second video. And I bet it would have went crazy. I've been experimenting a lot with YouTube Shorts. And that was one question. And really just an aside where, have you been putting like your YouTube tutorial videos on YouTube Shorts?
That's where we're going to iterate next on both YouTube Shorts and TikTok. So the issues that I'm having is that I'm doing a lot of this stuff myself, and so like we're now right, getting a lot of these tools, to kind of publish and schedule everything out. So that's what my data entry person is on now. He's tasked with, finding the best clips and putting them on the other platforms and making that thing kind of go. So I hate making excuses. Like I haven't been posting, cross-posting, but my goal has been to grow my Instagram because I'm verified on Instagram. We got 10,000 people on there, and I like that platform a lot. So like that's been my focus for the past few months, but now we're going to kind of start syndicating.
Phil, I apologize. I have to correct the record. I said that you had around 5,000 followers earlier. I was confusing you with my last guest, Goodland Brand, who has like 4,900. You have 10K on Instagram. I knew that.
Yeah. So, and I don't say that's weak in my world, but what I'm saying is I was stuck at 8K for so long. I was stuck in that world. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to get at least to 10 I get set a few month deadline. And I just started creating and making sure that I'm boosting to the right people, making sure my objective's right, just going hard, and then we hit 10. So the thing is, I now know it was a grind to get to 10. It wasn't like I'm creating this incredible content that is making everyone turn into a follower. We're reaching, like one of my posts reached 1 million people, but like it didn't turn into freaking followers in that world. But I will say, I do know how to grind it out. If I wanted to get to 100,000, I know how to grind it out now. And I'm a geriatric millennial at this point. So the idea, like, we're not, you know what I mean? Like the stuff that comes easy to some people, like getting followers and knowing the language of that stuff, it didn't really hit for me. I was vlogging in like 2006. Like if you look at the
creator before the word exists.
If you go
different back in the day.
If you go to YouTube and look up Jesty Beatz is Famous, there is a very real vlog. Like I had a series, I only have one up. Every other one's hidden. But I have one that's like up in public that showcases my vlog skills in 2006. So I was doing it before a lot of these people were even like sentient beings, but I just was ahead of my time and then just grinding and didn't want to do, so now that I'm trying to be an influencer, here I am. I know how to grind it out. We're going to iterate and blow it up.
Hell yeah, man. So, dude, what do you think? Because I spend a lot of time thinking about social, both for work and personal. You made the point that you reached almost 1 million people, but like your conversion to follows wasn't great. What is the type of content? And if you don't know, then that's cool too. Or you're still trying to work and figure it out. What is the stuff that makes people not just go interesting, like whatever, but like follow? Do you have to like emotionally hit them? Like what's the secret, man?
I feel like you gotta hit emotional, and there has to be something in it for them. Like that is the key. People are selfish now. They like the days of really marveling at some unique, talented person are few. They're like far away, kind of. Like you can get like if there's like a world-class singer that's just going ham, but like I feel like that might do something. But like for me, that hasn't worked. So I am trying to hit you with everything. I'm trying to hit you with hooks. I'm trying to hit you with like performance. I'm trying to hit you with whatever I can to, because I don't think that anybody ever knows. It's the same with like 1 million streams on Spotify. People are like, there's songs of mine that are at like 7-8 million streams, or What Dreams Are Made Of just hit 30 million on Spotify. Like,
where's Blue Hundreds at? I wanted to shout that song out because I've loved that song for years.
Good.
I want people to go
I
and
feel
listen
like
to it
that's
right now.
I feel like that's over 7 million at this point on Spotify, and
So
I don't
Holy
even know
Mattress Money,
Holy
Blue
Mattress Money,
Hundreds
Blue Hundreds.
Holy Mattress Money is your AKA. That's like your other artist name, and you create your own music. You also feature singers and stuff on songs you write, you produce. Want to make sure we give a strong shout out because again, love the name. You're good at naming things, Darrel. So
Yes,
don't ever
thanks
lose
so
that.
much.
Dude,
Yo,
I mean,
but
declared major Holy Mattress Money. These are elite level names. So
boom,
well
I
done.
love it. Thank you so much. Yo, so but yeah, that's my thing. So that's at 7 million, and I've got songs that I think are better than that song, but that song is the one that connected, and it was crazy. You got to understand what happened was when I created Holy Mattress Money, I wanted it to be a faceless mattress logo that did not have any face to it. And I wanted it to be multi-genre so that if I were to pop off and 10 songs on Holy Mattress Money played on the radio, you wouldn't get sick of it because it's all different stuff. Like I wanted it to be like that. Yeah. It was a vibe. So that's what I wanted to do. So with Holy Mattress Money, I started by releasing a song every Monday for as long as I could without getting jammed up. So I would write a song, produce it, get it mixed and mastered, and then upload it to the DSP. Do the same thing. And I did it for 12 weeks straight before I like got overwhelmed, right? So, and with that time, in that time, we're doing lyric videos, we're running ads, we're doing all this stuff. I'm sending people to Spotify. Next thing you know, we're getting so much favorable algorithmic support from Spotify that like we finally caught fire week 7 with Blue Hundreds. Now, what was different about that? I could tell you what was different. When I wrote that song, I wrote it specifically from the mindset of a person who is, I wrote it specifically because I wanted it to hear it sung back to me live. So I kept editing the melody, the vocal melody though. I edited it until I could hear a mass of people sang the melody back to me. It didn't have words at that point, but I made sure that the melody could be sang by a giant crowd. Like that was my mind. So I dumbed it down until I could get that to that point. And then I've connected with it. And because Holy Mattress Money has like male vocalists or non-binary vocalists or female vocalists or whatever you are identified as, like it could have been anybody singing it. And I found I accidentally made the song without pronouns. Like there aren't it's like baby, you, and me. There's not like he, she, they, them, it. So like that, I didn't realize it at the time, but a lot of people told me afterwards, like I could relate to this story and I wasn't taken out of the story because the pronouns didn't fit. It was just you and me.
Interesting.
I did not know. And then from there, that's one of the main reasons why it like connected and resonated with so many people. It was, you know, that pining, unrequited, but like that other person's kind of just mildly interested or entertaining you type thing, and you really are in love with this person and you think you'd be perfect for this person. And imagine that story now doesn't have the pronouns that would take you out of the story. That's what worked.
That's crazy, man. That's super cool.
Yeah, man.
All right, here we go, Darrel. So I think, and again, I know I've said this a few times, correct me if I'm wrong, I came across a YouTube video, and I'm sure there are probably plenty, of a fan, I think singing Blue Hundreds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like not the artist, but just like a fan singing it. When you see stuff like that, or when you see your music on TV, in scores and in public stuff, how does it make you feel?
Okay, though they're all different feelings. The feeling of a person taking time out of their day to sing a song that they've memorized that you've written is insane. I think that I've always looked at that as a benchmark of creating something that was great. Like, that's my benchmark almost. Like, will somebody else sing this? And does it relate and resonate to the point that somebody would learn it and sing it? Like, and that is something that I love. Hearing stuff on TV, like, I didn't know that I got the placement on Love is Blind, whether the email got lost or whatever. I didn't know. So I'm just watching the show as a fan, and then I like hear I'm like, yo, this is crazy. Like, what? This is let's go. I didn't know. I had no clue. So like that was a cool moment just because that was a genuine me as a fan type of moment. And then
I can't imagine how that's crazy.
I was hyped. And so outside of that, the other ones, it's an anticipation thing where you get advance notice of when it's going to air. Like, they'll be like, all right, in 3 weeks, this is going to air on Thursday at 8 p.m. And then you can like sit down and, kind of have people over and do all this. It actualizes and makes me feel like something that I'm doing is actually impacting culture or moving culture forward, when so much in my early career, I dreamt of that. I dreamt of impacting culture and reaching a height to where I could impact normal life, for like that's it. That's
lots of people.
That's all I really wanted. I just wanted to connect. Like I said this before, but like I never drank or smoked. OU was a party school. All of this was an elaborate ruse to make friends and connect with people on something that I was interested in. And how could I be at a party? How could I be the life of the party at a party school without partaking in party activities? Well, I can rap for you, and you can all come to see me or come to my spot.
Right.
This has all been an elaborate plan. Right. This was an elaborate plan to make friends and connect with people. And so when I see those opportunities coming to life, it's all I've wanted,
It's awesome, dude. All right. 4 more. This is kind of the lightning round.
Cool, man.
Is there a business owner you can think of? Could be a friend, could be someone from Ohio, someone from anywhere, or a creator that I should talk to on the podcast, someone you'd recommend that I talk to on the show?
I think you should talk to my man, E-Dub. He is one of my mentors. Everything that I know about running an independent label, actually running a studio, because his story's crazy. He lives in LA. He has a record label, Silent Giant Entertainment. He has a film production company where he's produced films. He also has several studio locations with mad rooms. He's got crazy production credits. He's just a great guy. Oh, he also has a syndicated radio show, Pocos Pero Locos, with his wife Kool-Aid. So they've been doing this for a while, but they're like super talented. And he was the example for me, like in terms of like knowing somebody who will still, when it needs to happen, he'll mop up the floor, but he also like owns the whole building. Like, you know what I mean? Like that person is the person. That's who you need to talk to. We'll figure out how to get that going.
All right. Awesome. I know you've done a bit of traveling. Where's a place that you've been in the world that you would recommend someone else visit?
Place that I've been in the world that I would recommend someone else visit. If you want to feel small, go to China. Meaning, like, there's so many people there, and they all have lives, and it's like a mind thing, But yeah, I'd say that.
Okay.
But
did you go there for music or just to visit or what?
So I went to visit friends, and my sister actually lived there for a while, so I went to visit her there. But I did the first time actually do a bunch of shows. There is a hip hop scene there, and I was able to kind of like finesse my way on stage in a couple situations by way of being a giant black dude who says he can rap. Like, you know what I mean? So the
fact that you're able to finesse yourself on the stage is not surprising to me at all. That's amazing.
So that worked out. So yeah, that. Where else I say? I'd say, I don't know, man. Every other place is cool, but I feel like China was the most like culture shock, and I welcomed the culture shock. But
what about somewhere you haven't been that you would like to visit in your life?
That I would like to visit. I want to go to Africa, but because I did my ancestry and I found out that there's like a few West African countries that like make up the bulk of my DNA. So I'd love to go to Nigeria first of all, and I'd love to see all of it, the parts that they don't show on TV, sure. The beautiful, awesome, amazing parts, and kind of get in there. Yeah, I'd like to go there. I'd like to go to South Africa to visit some people that I know. Most of the places I want to go are because of people that I know there. So I want to go to Netherlands. The Netherlands, I want to go to Germany. Again, I've been to Germany, but I want to go to like some different parts. So I just want to visit my friends and visit people who I haven't been able to meet in real life, So yeah, it's more about the people. The places are, you can be anywhere. I don't care. I want to see my friends.
Right, no, I love that. That's a fine reason to travel. Where can people find you online? Where would you point them? And feel free to shout out anything and everything.
Yeah, if you want to find me, I'm Jesty Beatz, JESTYBEATZ on TikTok, on Instagram. Instagram is where I'm at. Facebook, we're slowly getting it back going because Facebook is the hub of my past. So we're getting that thing going. JustJesty.com. That is to see some of the work, but you can find me anywhere, man. Just Google Jesty Beatz and there's a million ways to get at me. So
no doubt.
Yeah.
Dude, I can't thank you enough for doing this, for the whole Ohio University community. I know I'm not alone in saying we take a lot of pride in watching what you've done with your life and your career. And yeah, man, I just can't say thanks enough for taking the time to do this. It was been really cool catching up, and like I said, man, maybe some point in the future you and I'll just go deep on social and I can learn some more from you along those lines after your another year or two of learning. But thanks again, man.
Thanks for having me. This is awesome what you're doing, so I love it. It's great to see you. You were definitely instrumental in helping and me gain my confidence to be able to even do this, so thank you.
That means a lot for you to say, man.
Heck yeah.
All right, Darrel, I'm going to go ahead and stop and do that. Cool.